Chapter 16. The guard looked up as Celine entered the security booth, clad in a fresh set of slick black leathers. Watching over the crypt and its hibernating inhabitants was a tedious job, so no doubt he welcomed the unexpected company. "Careful," Celine warned herself. "Don't give away your intentions." "Khan wants to see you," she said tersely. That got a reaction. Celine knew that the guard, Duncan, had aspirations of rising in the ranks of the death dealers. He jumped up from his seat behind the security monitors, eager to report to the dojo upstairs. He halted at the exit, though, and glanced back uneasily at his post. "Don't worry," she told him. "I'll hold down the fort." He nodded gratefully and rushed out the booth. Celine waited until his retreating footsteps completely disappeared, before passing an electronic button to open the entrance to the crypt itself. I have to hurry. She thought Duncan would soon discover that he had been tricked. She descended the time-worn granite steps to the sunken stone floor below. The temperature seemed to drop a couple of degrees with each step, so that her blood felt even colder than usual by the time she reached down the bottom of the crypt. Am I actually going through with this? She thought, uncertainty daunted by the sheer enormity of what she was contemplating. Until tonight, I never would have dreamed of disturbing an elder's sleep. The crypt was hushed and dimly lit. Celine's eyes penetrated the umbrageous twilight to focus on 3 bronze hatches resting at the center of the bottom floor's interlaced Celtic circles. Only 2 of the tombs were occupied. She knew Amelia's sarcophagus was empty, awaiting the female elder's arrival tomorrow night, when Marcus would emerge from his sepulchral resting place to take his turn as sovereign of all the covens of the world. At least, that was the plan. Celine had other ideas. Ignoring the other 2 hatches, she went straight to the polished bronze circle, marked by a stylized letter V. She knelt beside the tomb, hesitating only an instant before inserting her fingers into the cold metal groove surrounding the V. Untouched for almost a century, the ancient hat resisted her at first. Exerting her strength, however, she succeeded in rotating the circular bronze disc, which activated the dormant locking mechanism. The intricate designs adjoining the hatch began to turn mechanically, as Celine heard the muted rumble of hidden machinery awakening from slumber. The bronze hatch split apart into 4 triangular segments, exposing the sarcophagus beneath. The ponderous sound of stone sliding across stone violated the funeral stillness of the crypt. Celine rose to her feet and, holding her breath, stepped back from the tomb. She was committed now. There was no turning back. Accompanied by the automated reverberation of a concealed motor, a large vertical slab rose from the floor like a coffin-sized elevator. The slab thrust upwards until it was several centimeters taller than Celine, then pivoted on its axis. Moving steadily, it snapped into place, horizontal to the floor. A serpent figure was laid out upon the slab. Celine stepped forward towards the bier, suppressing a gasp at the shocking sight before her. After nearly 100 years of unbroken slumber, Victor bore little resemblance to the regal monarch she remembered. The skeletal figure on the slab looked more like a mummy than a vampire, dry, withered, and seemingly lifeless, like a collection of fragile bones shrink-wrapped in papery brown skin. His eyes closed, lurked at the bottom of his sunken black sockets, while his desecrated lips had peeled away from his gums, exposing yellowed fangs, locked in death's head grin. Once powerful limbs were now spindly sticks wrapped in jerky-like strips of meat, and his plunging abdomen had collapsed below the exposed ribcage. Black satin trousers spared the sight of his shriveled manhood. "Oh, my sire," she lamented, "what has your long repose done to you?" Even though she had expected to find Victor in just his condition, the ghastly reality still came as a jolt. She had to remind herself that Victor had submitted to this interment willingly, as part of the hallowed tradition that stretched back through the ages. The everlasting cycle of the chain served 2 vital functions. First, as an ingenious power-sharing arrangement among the 3 elders, avoiding conflict among them by ensuring that only one of them was in command in any given century, and second, to provide each elder with a much-needed respite from the demands of eternity. Immortality can be wearing. Victor had once explained to her, shortly before entering his tomb a century ago. Watching the never-ending tides of history ebb and flow, striving to keep up with the dizzying changes in science and civilization, even the most resilient elders feel the need to retire from the fray from time to time, to spend a century or two in silent repose, before rising to confront the future with renewed wisdom and clarity. That had been nearly 100 years ago. Celine shook her head, trying to reconcile the majestic immortal in her memory with the cadaverous figure upon the slab, which was disturbingly silent and immobile, its bony chest neither rising nor falling as the fleeting moments passed. If she hadn't have known better, Celine would have sworn that the apparent corpse on the slab was well and truly dead, beyond all hope of resurrection. Indeed, by the blinkered standards of modern medicine, Victor was dead, but appearances could be deceiving. Gleaming copper implants molted Victor's emaciated throat, the female components on the elaborate intravenous feeding system. More connection she knew was hidden beneath the Catamouth vampire's back, designed to sustain Victor during his centuries-long period of hibernation. The apparatus had kept him alive for nearly 99 years and exactly 364 days. Left undisturbed, it would preserve him for another century as well. Celine couldn't wait that long. Quickly, she thought, knowing that Duncan could return in any minute. She tore her gaze away from Victor's seemingly lifeless carcass to inspect the meticulously crafted framework surrounding him. A series of shallow silver bowls were built into the raised edge of the sarcophagus, leading to a delicate metal spigot. Both the bowls and the spigot were carefully etched with precise calibrations, and a telescoping metal arm connected to the apparatus, which was collectively known as the catalyst strip, to the beer itself. Trepidation wearing with resolve, Celine watched apprehensively as the metal spigot motored along the inside of the casket, positioning itself above Victor's mummified face. Here comes the tricky part, she thought. To her knowledge, an awakening had never been attempted by one such as she. The elders alone held the power to organize their thoughts and memories into a single cohesive vision, forming a detailed record of their reign. Celine could only hope that Victor would hear her and comprehend her desperate plea. She unzipped her sleeve and raised her arm to her face. Her lips parted, exposing her fangs, and she took a deep breath. Please, let this work, she entreated. The outcome of this war may depend on it. Without further delay, she bit into her wrist, feeling her own deadly fangs slice through her ageless white skin. The sharp sting of the incision made her wince, and the briny taste of her own blood exploded upon her tongue, yet she resisted the urge to drink deeply of her crimson essence. Just as she took care to cut only deeply enough to sever the veins, sparing the vital arteries buried further beneath her flesh. She needed only a tiny stream of blood for this solemn rite, not a sputtering red geyser. Allowing herself only a sip of her cool vampiric plasma, Celine reluctantly pulled her wrist away from her blood-smeared mouth. There's nothing like the real thing, she admitted, with a stab of regret, even when stolen from my own veins. She had subsisted on sorry substitutes for far too long, but her frustrated craving was not what mattered now. She held her wrist out over the leading bowl of the catalyst drip and squeezed the wound to hasten the flow. Dark venous blood spilled from her open wrist into the shining bowl, beginning its slow and winding progression from bowl to bowl. An arcane chemical catalyst, absorbed via an osmotic filter at the base of each bowl, mixed with Celine's shed blood to undergo a sublime alchemical transformation. Even as the thin red serum descended towards Victor's decimated maw, Celine peered ruefully at the crimson stream. She was all too aware that she lacked the mental strength and discipline to precisely regulate the flow of memories being carried by her blood. All she could do was watch the dark red fluid make its way towards the opening spigot and pray that her entreaty had not been garbled too badly. Leaving Victor and the equipment alone for a moment, she hurried across the bottommost floor to the rear of the crypt, where a sealed plexiglass chamber lurked just beyond the subdued halogen lighting over the elders' tombs. A pair of rectangular marble pillars framed the entrance to the sealed compartment, whose sterile futuristic design contrasted sharply with the somber medieval majesty of the ancient crypt. This was the recovery chamber, employed only once every 100 years. The transparent plexiglass walls were a new addition to the facility, part of a never-ending program to update and improve the chamber in accordance with the steady progress of technological innovation. The elders demanded and deserved the best of modern science that only it could provide, even if their memories extended profoundly back through history. Celine rushed into the recovery unit and flicked on the lights. A wheeled metal gurney occupied the center of the room, surrounded by an antiseptic chromed counters and sophisticated diagnostic monitors. A complicated array of plastic tubing dangled from the ceiling like a bizarre biomedical chandelier. Ducking her head beneath the overhead tubing, Celine was straight for a refrigerated metal cabinet whose locked door proved no match for her preternatural strength and determination. Dozens of plastic IV bags filled with preserved human plasma and hemoglobin rested inside the cabinet, and Celine helped herself freely to the supplies, piling them high atop a burnished steel counter next to the gurney. Is this enough? She fretted, wishing she didn't have to figure all this out on her own. Too bad Michael isn't here, she thought wearily. He was a doctor after all, although Celine seriously doubted that he could ever take part in a procedure like the one she was attempting now. While Celine hastily prepared the recovery chamber, the first few drops of her catalyzed blood completed their circuitous journey through the sequence of bowls. A swollen scarlet bead dangled beneath the lip of the burnished copper spigot, the globe bulging in size until gravity finally wrested it from its precarious perch. The bright red droplet plummeted through space to land with a splat upon Victor's cracked and arid lips. From there, it trickled over the brink into a yawning chasm beneath the mummy's lips, falling like rain upon the sere and barren landscape at the back of his throat. More bloody raindrops plunged from above, watering the inanimate tissues with miraculous results. Parched membranes greedily soaked up the magic elixir. Inert cells and corpuscles rose from the dead, pulsing back to life at a geometric rate. Dried veins and capillaries resumed their ancient duties, carrying Celine's heartfelt liberation deep into the petrified recesses of Victor's undead heart and mind, along with a flood of jumbled memories and images. Celine, bathed in candlelight, her lovely face, wan and bloodless, stands before a window, staring at her reflection. A pristine white nightgown is draped upon her shapely form. Her eyes wide, she tugs down the collar of her gown, inspecting the fresh bite wound on her slender throat. 2 livid red spots directly above her jugular. Her lower lip quivers tremulously as her slender fingers gingerly explore the wound. Her fear-stricken eyes are those of a traumatized innocent, quite unlike the hardened death dealer she would become someday. A shadowy figure, only dimly reflected in the glass, strolls up behind her, placing a reassuring hand upon her shoulder. Victor's hand, as yet untouched by time. The images came faster, burning past his mind's eye with blazing intensity. The memories were disordered, chaotic, and out of sequence, as though being fed to him by a clumsy amateur. Celine stands before a foggy bathroom mirror, unintentionally echoing her pose from that night long past. Her dark brown hair is freshly wet from a shower. A dark indigo bathrobe partially conceals her moist alabaster flesh. 3 frenzied werewolves, their misshapen bodies bristling with pitch-black fur, charge down a dingy corridor, faintly illuminated by sputtering electrical lights. Their yellowed fangs glint sharply beneath the fluorescent glow. Spume drips from the corners of their gaping maws. Celine and Craven argue heatedly in a patriarchal suite. Their eternal youthful faces radiate extreme emotion and mutual contempt. Craven raises his hand, which smacks against her ivory cheek like the lash of an angry whip. Back before her mirror, Celine writes Victor's name across the befogged looking glass. The disjointed memories flickered and warped as they paraded frantically across her consciousness. Walking slowly, he attempted to make sense of the confused images, but the kaleidoscope barrage of visions defied his control. As Celine looks on with disdain, Craven presides over a sanguineous orgy in the grand salon. Supple vampires in various states of dishabille offer their exposed throats and breasts to Craven, who greedily partakes of the proffered white flesh and crimson refreshment. A suffutal blood trickles down his chin, straining his ruffled white tunic as his cybernetic acolytes couple, triple, and even quadruple with abandon, turning the elegant salon into a scene of wanton debauchery. Discarded items of clothing fashionably expensive and otherwise litter the floor. Thirsty mouths seek out willing veins, so that every square centimetre of naked flesh receives the razor-sharp kiss of striking fangs. The collective essence of the cavatoring vampires circulates through their intertwined bodies like the bloodstream of a single vast organism. Human slaves and initiates, imported at a great expense from Budapest and beyond, season the licentious repast, adding an infusion of mortal heat to the cold-blooded sensuality of the undead. Slurping and sucking noises pervade the scene, punctuated by ecstatic grunts and moans. The voluptuous images stirred his own sluggish blood, but the choppy cascade of memories swiftly moved on, its relentless current carrying him elsewhere. A human youth, his hair and clothing drenched as from a heavy rain, rides an escalator down to a crowded subway platform. Victor's own body lies upon a padded bier, his undying flesh mummified by his long interment beneath the mansion. A woman's wrist, Celine's, bleeds above the open bowl of the catalyst drip, beginning the time-honored process by which she shares her turbulent memories with the body upon the slab. Enough. He froze the bleeding wrist within his mind. Exerting his returning powers of concentration, he halted the flood of fractured memories, then turned back to the stream, so that the preceding images zoomed by fleetingly, in reverse. He scanned Celine's jumbled recollections, maintaining tight control over the visions, until he found the moment he sought, the one she had clearly wished him to experience. She stands once more before the bathroom mirror, entreating her reflection with anxious eyes. "Please, forgive me," she says solemnly, "but I desperately need your guidance. I apologize for breaking the chain and awakening you so ahead of schedule, but I fear we may all be in grave danger, especially you, my lord, if left in your weakened state, for I believe the fearsome Lucian is alive and well, here, now, in this very city, preparing to strike out at us all during the awakening." She swallowed hard, visibly troubled by these unnerving prospects, before speaking again. "Even more disturbingly is the realization that, if I am correct in my suspicions, Craven himself is in league with our greatest enemy.